Okay, we'll go with that for a setting. It's so dusty in here. Just taking my finger across this base. Well, you probably can't see that, but that's pretty dusty. Now, I didn't mean to do it with that finger, but I just happened to be the one that popped up. Okay. I am not in that dust bowl, but I'm in a wind tunnel almost right now. But I'll tell you this. I pulled out last evening before the sun set, and when I got out here looking up in the sky, man, I could see so many stars. It was so clear. So it really was in a dust bowl there. I mean, you could not see many stars at all, but last night I looked up and man, it's like I could see them all. So it's much clearer air down this way than it was where I was at. That I appreciate. And I've got an expert fellow going to be coming in to correct the poor work of the last guy. And I have no choice because this is my home. I can't risk a fire. And after trying to get the other fellow to cure things, correct things, he just was too sloppy. Just too sloppy. I mean, this is electrical work. You want somebody that is as tidy as can be. You want good crimps. You know, you don't want to have heat building up and wires in the joints, and you don't want to risk a fire. And I told him, you know, this is my home. I'm not compromising it. I have no choice. Anyway, I don't really want to go into that too much. As today, I understand that I was given well, I got a message, email, and it listed Trump's, well, it delineated Trump's style of negotiations and all of that, and no, I still, well, he seems to be doing things pretty good, and this getting rid of the Department of Education is about the best thing that could ever happen to the country. I met a woman when I was a young man. I was about 23 years of age, best I can remember. I had been in a wicked auto accident and had a settlement and was trying to figure out what to make of my life. Now, I thought about buying this fourplex. It was near Moon Valley, pretty middle of Anchorage. And for some reason, I ended up getting invited into the landowner's apartment and talking with her. And she was much older than I was, and she was a retired school teacher. And she was old stock. It's like nothing gets past the teacher, you know. And not only that, but if you're not correct, the teacher is going to correct you. So it was one of my most memorable conversations. Because after that, I decided that I was going to pursue the higher education that was suggested to me by others. I was going to return to school. I was either going to become a school teacher, which was highly recommended, or and also another thing that was recommended was a mid-level Army officer. Those were the two occupations that my temperament, personality, and you know that the Strong's interest inventory indicated that I would fit in well with. Yeah, right. As if I'm gonna fit in anywhere. I would have turned out better had my dad actually talked to me and had he actually explained to me his thought processes so I could learn those instead of just telling me things and not explaining things to me and leaving me hanging. Actually, he didn't talk to me much at all. It was like once a week I talked to my dad. He was behind the newspaper, and I couldn't wait till my dad come home. As a little boy, I was like, when's my dad coming home? He didn't talk to me. And my mother would always say, kids, your father's had a really rough day. Let him read his newspaper. So he'd hide behind the newspaper, reading it, digesting it, making sure to catch up on his daily brainwashing. The thing is that the newspapers weren't as bad as they are now. Education wasn't as bad as it is now. It's really bad now. I mean, it's just plain horrible. So what I want you to understand is in this conversation with the school teacher, she told me, and I mentioned when I graduated high school, and she corrected me. She told me, you didn't graduate yourself. We graduated you. You were graduated. You did not graduate yourself. So that's the message. You did not graduate yourself. The teachers did it. And the way it used to work in the Little Red Schoolhouse is that everybody was mainstreamed in one big room. And I've done a lot of substitute teaching. I did it for a couple of years in Boston Public School System. That was a gas. I did it in Anchorage for a couple of years too. I did some music stuff in Anchorage too. Man, I actually like that quite a bit. And I sometimes I wish I'd have gone back and gotten that music education degree and gone to work doing that, because that was a lot of fun. Because the students that were in there, when I had band class, the students that were in there, the ones that wanted to do it, were correcting each other and kind of backing me up. And I was doing my best to ignore the others and let these high school students, do it. And we would do it. And I could keep time. I could conduct okay. And the kids that were in that class, they loved it. Most of them did. You don't graduate. You are graduated. That's my message today. That's all there is to it. Now, let me explain this to you. In that Little Red Schoolhouse were all grades, all ages, all levels. And they did graduate you. You were given tests of mastery before you moved up in grade. You weren't just moved up with your cohorts. This is an important point, because we changed over to No Child Left Behind, but no child who was really smart was included. And believe me, I coasted my way through most of my years at school. I didn't have to work hardly at all. Not that I'm proud of that. I'm just saying I had enough horsepower that I didn't have to study hard. It was boring. I mean, it was boring. Once I learned my mathematics in fourth grade summer school from Mrs. Lewandowski, who I love dearly, and I made the royal mistake that you can make in a classroom in front of your other classmates. Of course, you know what that is, don't you? Excuse me. It's still dusty inside the rig. I got a lot of cleaning to do. Oh, I lose track sometimes so easily. But, I guess I'm having a good time, and maybe that's all that matters. But, again, thanks for joining me here. I saw the numbers last night, 583, and I think that's pretty much it. It's going to probably bounce between 582, 583. That's okay. I've tried to get a T-shirt fellow aboard, and when I asked for a letter in writing, I guess that was too formal for him, and I didn't mean to offend him or make it legalistic. I wanted to have something. I didn't even know his last name. I wanted to have his address on something so I could, write to him if I had to. I want to know a little bit about him, Anyway, the deal he offered was so good. The problem is, I don't know how I'm going to market these things just yet, except I'm going to beg him to send me a couple of the T-shirts. Then I'll probably wear one, and the other one I'll probably keep pristine and put it up here for you to see. And I've already got the ideas. I've had them for a while. There's two mottos in particular that I want you to adopt, and I want you to spread out there. Yes, we're fighting from behind, as Barack Obama says. I'm leading from behind. Now, you're going to hear about the the real 13th Amendment more and more, and you're going to hear about the solution, the strategic intervention now. I put that out there, and people started reporting it back, and I'm getting it on Facebook. I'm going, hey, where did you get that idea? The guy can't tell me. And I told him, I said, you got it from me. And they apologized. I said, don't apologize. Steal it. Go with it. Run with it. Get that idea out there. So the real 13th Amendment, it's in my list of documents here that I got to get scanned up and emailed off. The real 13th Amendment is how we free our nation to get our republic back. Why? Because it is actually the law of the land that was overwritten illegally, unconstitutionally. They failed to enforce it as well. And that was a big mistake. And that's a mistake of the Congress. The Congress has always been paid off. Samuel Clemens, who most of you know as Mark Twain, said, we have the best Congress money can buy. Yeah, we do. We do. And today it's like they're all crooks. They're all crooked as hell. They line their pockets and they keep this con game going for the central bankers and the stock market and the people that are at the very top and the people that are behind the scenes ruling over all of us. So we adopt the real 13th Amendment and all subsequent amendments, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, boom, 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 all null and void. Why? 14th and 15th were shoved down the South's throat. They did not have representation during that period of time. The representatives that they had, they didn't elect. They were appointed by the enemy up north. Bad mistake. Bad mistake. So those are null and void. And then the 16th Amendment, by the way, they never voted on it. Never even voted on it. And the 17th Amendment destroyed the Constitution, destroyed our republic. In my opinion, basically finished it off. Why? Because the states, in their sovereignty and authority, had authorized the central government. And now what? You're taking away the authority from whence it came? How's that working for you? That's what you got you in this mess here. I know, you think it just happened during your lifetime, or if you're my age. No. If you've been looking at it as long as I have, you realize that it was way before the 17th Amendment that we lost this country. So, back to my school teacher. She was nice enough to invite me into her apartment and to talk with me. And she was older, and she was a widow, and she had taught for many years and was retired. We graduate you. You don't graduate yourself. Okay, fine. That's a principle that I'm going to listen to myself for the rest of the day and let that resonate. Now, what we had were a whole lot of students in the room, and I did a lot of substitute teaching, and I was just amazed at how much better the women were at tracking down the students and knowing what was going on in the classroom. I don't know, I thought that some of my teachers had eyes in the back of their heads and they just knew what was going on. And they actually were in charge of the whole thing. Me, I found myself focusing not broadly, but just too tightly. So I wasn't catching the whole picture. So I admired that in the female teachers that I was around. I'm sure some of the male teachers did that as well, but it became a female-dominated profession. It was a male-dominated profession. My grandmother was a school teacher, and she lost her job because of the Democrats. It was the seventh plank of the New Deal for 7 years until the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional. And that seventh plank was a married woman could not work outside of the house unless her husband was certified by a medical doctor as infirmed, interned, unable to get up, go out and work and earn a living for himself and his family. If he couldn't work, she got to go to work. It was a law of the land for 7 years. It was the damn Democrats again, exceeding their authority. And here's the real problem. You ladies like to vote on feelings. It feels good. We want to do it. We're gonna force you to do that stuff. We're gonna force you to stop drinking booze, right? What a big fiasco that was. Anyway, let me get back to the story and keep this one a little bit shorter. I apologize. You were given tests of mastery, and you had to master that domain before you were moved up to the next class. So you didn't move up with your cohorts, and you weren't kept back with your cohorts either. The average education level, back when my grandparents were going to school, was 6th grade level. Now, I know you're going to say, oh my God, they only had a 6th grade education, Dr. Kent. How could anybody do that to their children? The 6th grade education was good enough to go out there and earn a living. That's right. My grandfather had a 6th grade education. But I got news for you. That 6th grade education was better than your high school diploma today, better than your high school education. Far superior. Matter of fact, I'll say this right now, it was probably better than the bachelor's education. And the fact that education is centralized and controlled, as well as all the professions are centralized and controlled, as well as all the corporations are centralized and controlled, as well as all the governments across the planet are centralized and controlled. That's why you can't be great, because the kids are ready to move on don't have a chance. The kids that have actual horsepower, don't stand a chance because they're being dumbed down with the other little bastards. Now, please don't get me wrong. I don't think you can just move people up because they can't read. Now, I usually don't like talking about some things in the family, but I'm kind of proud of this. But I'm also ashamed of it because my brother could not read. I'm his older brother, and my sister pointed this out in a very harsh, awkward, condescending fashion. And I was a senior in high school. And my sister got out a book or something and put it in front of our brother, little brother, and says, read this. And my sister made her point. And I was like, what the? I felt negligent. I felt horrible about it. I felt like, hey, man, I should have been in there helping him do this stuff. And I really wished I had. My brother actually had skills and developed skills that I couldn't develop. He had intelligence in some domains and some areas that are just off the charts. For a man who's illiterate to be able to take apart an engine and put it back together again and have it running better than before, that was way above my pay grade, man. Way above my pay grade. His geometrical envision, his ability to spatial concepts and all that was like way advanced. He was quite talented in his limitations. So it was just an uneven development. Unfortunately, fortunately, he didn't grow up. Yeah, I want to say he didn't grow with a bad heart like our sister, but his heart's not exactly very good. He turned out to be shrewd, laying in wait there for me basically all those years to take it out on me when he had a chance. He didn't get to know me. I didn't get to know him very well either. But at 30 years of age, or slightly over that, my brother learned how to read. Now, what I do admire in him is he's got a trait that I have. I think this runs in the Kents. You tackle the unknown. You face your fears. You take on the hard task of improving yourself. So my brother learned not just how to read, he learned how to write. And I'll remember I remember when I wrote my aunt letters, she would, as her school teacher and being as anal as she would take out her red pen, apparently, because I would get the letter back corrected in red ink. It wasn't funny when I was a little boy. I mean, it really wasn't. It really was kind of traumatizing because I'm like, I couldn't satisfy her, I couldn't please her. I'm like, anyway, my brother sent me his first letter. They were almost run-on sentences. They were overlapping phrases in the sentences. But he was writing, and I applauded that. He's facing his fears. He's doing the hard work. He eventually wrote a play script. Now, I don't think I have it. I don't think I've ever read it. And I have no idea. As far as his politics go, he's a buffoon. He thinks he's conservative. He doesn't realize that he's basically a communist. I mean, that's kind of what the family turned out to be, sadly. Not realizing it, slowly they shaped us over the decades. Years, decades. So my brother learned how to read and write pretty doggone well. And I'm proud of that. He went through a very hard time. And he was running on a regular basis. He was down to he was down to like 180 pounds. And he was running, I don't know how much. I think he ran more than I did. I don't know. But I ran quite a bit myself. But he was fighting for his daughters, actually. And I have to tell you, he actually he impressed me. He was taking full responsibility, and he put up with that miserable girl that he married, who was very disrespectful and not very loyal. And I really don't want to go into that because I really don't know and I don't want to know. So we used to, in that little red classroom, help each other. So the teacher knew that somebody had mastered the domain and this other student needed some help, and she knew that that child could help the student. So it wasn't just the teacher teaching in the classroom. It was all of us teaching each other. And whatever mode that we learned best in, that was okay. There was enough activity and organization in that classroom that everybody was teaching, everybody was learning. And everybody was helping everybody else. And those students who were ready to move on, they moved on. Now, I went to college at age 17, and a lot of you are going to say, well, that's early. No, it's not. That's late. That's too late. My ancestors went to college at age 15, and that was considered too old. And a lot of them, most of them went to college at age 14. 14, they'd been graduated from high school. As a matter of fact, they would go and sit for the entrance examinations. This is back before it all went libtard and liberal. And the first father of education was a Raskin. That's what his name was. And yes, he was a Jewish gentleman. And yes, he came with that baggage. That's all I'm going to say. And we ended up with this education system. There's no right to a free education. Please understand that nobody's going to give you an education that's going to allow you to come out from underneath their rule. Even my parents were training their sons and their daughters, well, not me anyway, to be independent from them. Big bad mistake on my parents' part. Failure. They get an F for that one. There's other domains, though. They passed on those. So, what was the college entrance examination? This is wild, because you and I couldn't do it today. The college entrance examination was purposely built so that they got the good people in the university. It weeded out anybody who was not top dog. You did not get in unless it was merited, unless you earned your position. And so when you went, let's say Dartmouth, you were sitting for the entrance examination, they'd come in and tell you, open your Bible. That's right. Our first reading book that we all were educated in was the Bible. Get that right. That was our reading primer. And the vocabulary inside the King James Bible is just phenomenal. It is massive. It should be. After all, William Shakespeare, the real William Shakespeare, the man behind the plays, Sir Francis Bacon, who was fathered by a Mr. Kent, he had probably the biggest vocabulary in history. Now, we all knew the Bible. That gave us a great edge over the rest of the world. That is when I figure I finally got educated, and I was over 53 when I finally sat on my ass and read the Bible. And I was like, man, I wish I'd have read this sooner. My entire life would have been different. It would have been much better, much richer. My life has been pretty rich. Not that I got any bucks or anything, but I mean, I feel like I've succeeded. I understand the world today, and I understand how we got here. And I don't think there's maybe a handful of people, well, I know there's more than that, because most of us who know this stuff keep our mouths shut because it disturbs other people to know the truth. And to hear that you know something they don't know, they really get jealous and envious over that. In your entrance examination, the proctor of the exam would walk in and tell you, open your Bible to this book, this chapter. And then the command was, translate it. This is a tough one. Translate it. Let me see if I can get this exactly right. I'm just taking a guess because I never sat for this test. I just heard about it. You had to translate a chapter in the Bible into a foreign language. Guess which foreign language it was? Latin. Yeah, baby. You had to translate it into Latin. Okay. You translate it into Latin. Proctor comes in again and says, okay, now take this. Oh, and by the way, then they would come in. And of course, this was a Hebrew passage, not English. This is a Hebrew passage. Well, it could have been English. I don't really know. Proctor could have changed it up on people too. But basically, you had to take the same chapter, which you had just rendered in Latin, and render it in Greek. In other words, you had to be fluent and master just not English, which we don't have in this country, by the way. And if you want to understand how badly we don't have it, go read the letters of the founders. Read the letters of the founders' wives. Can you write at that level, with that level of precision? I can, but it's forced and it's a struggle. And I've majored in English and I have a doctorate. I have several degrees. But I can't write at that level unless I really work at it. And then I have to give myself a lot of time. Those people just sat down and wrote the letter. For me to do that kind of letter takes a frickin' week. Seriously, to write as well as they did. Anyway, they've dumped us down with a bunch of toxins and toxicity, poisoning through the media, poisoning through the air, not just the airwaves, but the shit they're spraying, especially the heavy metals, the aluminum, barium, strontium, all the other stuff that they're doing. There's probably mercury in there. There's probably cadmium in there. There's all kinds of stuff in there and all kinds of pathogens, primarily mycotoxins. which, according to the medical doctor, head of the World Health Organization, in the paper he published with about 5 other authors, mycotoxins are the cause of all cancers in man and animals. Myco, from mushrooms, fungus, mold. Don't be upset with the molds. Don't go after the molds, because we need the molds, because when something is left to deteriorate, it's got to be returned to the earth. And believe it or not, it's the molds that really take it apart and help to recycle this place. Help us with the recycling so we can keep the circle of life going. So you went to Dartmouth at age 14 on average, and if you were 15 years old, you stood out like a sore thumb, because what are you doing coming in so late? Is you a retard or something? Oh, we're just letting you in? Or they had an extra space that they needed to fill, so yeah, that's how you got in. You went to college at age 14. And by the way, you graduated much earlier too. And the other thing was, they didn't hold you back on that. You didn't have to go and pony up tuition and fees and pay for books for 4 years. I mean, if you could do it in 1 year, that's the way it was. That's all there was to it. So this is merit. This is earning your way. But the way I was done, I had to move up with the other students. And there were some things I wasn't very good at. I wasn't good in English. It was my worst subject. And when I realized how unbalanced I was, I had a 100 points differential between my arithmetic score and my English score. What are they? SATs or ACTs, whatever the hell they were. I should know those tests. I studied how to do tests and all that, but I haven't worked in the field and done testing in a while. Look, you need to understand we've been dumbed down. We've also been poisoned down so that you don't even have the ability to process your own life and this life as well as you think. I know you think, well, I'm above average. We all said that. Oh, they're above average, above average, above average. Everything's above average. Really? If everything's above average, then what happened to average? Anyway, I busted my ass my senior year. I had the opportunity to sign up with a teacher who actually was on the junior high side. I think it was it Mears or whatever. It was Diamond High School in Anchorage, which was out in the sticks at the time. It was on a dirt road. Diamond was a dirt road back then, man. And the cars didn't go down it that often. It was that remote. And so I got a tutor, a teacher. And he spent an hour with me every week. And I told him, hey, I'm deficient in English. You know, I'm deficient in English. Let's work on that. So I ended up taking like 4 classes in English at one time. It was self-study. You had to be a self-starter for that. And by the way, our schools are trained so that people don't become self-starters. And by the way, my family, my parents ran my ass in a way so I couldn't be a self-starter very well. It was very difficult because all I ever heard is why I couldn't do things and why I couldn't do that and what it was going to take and how that was not possible. And you're not going to do this business. You're not going to succeed at that. You got to have a good car if you're going to sell real estate. You can't do it if you've got to do this. I always heard why I couldn't do things. I didn't get the encouragement. Except they wanted me to go to law school because I opened my mouth up. And yeah, and my dad later lied about it when I confronted him about it because they weren't even happy with me going and becoming a psychologist. I know. I'm trying to correct my language, and I know it's my habit to use the GD in front of that, but I'm ashamed of my language, okay? We need to go back to the Little Red Schoolhouse. Not only that, but the teachers were not in charge. The parents were in charge. The parents pooled their money and resources together, and they hired and fired the school teacher. If the parents did not like what the teacher was doing, They fired the teacher and hired somebody else. That's the way it needs to be. We need to go back. And I know they're going to say, oh, that's not fair. That's not fair to the minorities. Look, they took us over by emphasizing the racial differences and by, well, I don't want to sound racist here, but they gave hands up that I don't think they should have given. And they went way too far with it. Because right now, in the music business, you cannot help somebody unless it's a female. My friends that are older musicians today tell me, John, you understand. Let me tell you what it's like. And he'd talk to me and he'd call me up and apologize. He'd call me up and apologize for what he said in the last conversation. What the hell are you talking about? What's wrong? He says, well, I said such and such, and that was racist, or that sounded, that was insensitive. What the fuck, man? I mean, I had to help desensitize him, which is where you need to go too, and I need to go. We need to be able to use these verboten, illegal words freely. We need to be able to make jokes once again. I'll tell you, some of the best jokes I ever heard. Oh, what's that guy's name? Genius level, a comedian. My God. Wow. We have had some good black comedians. You have to agree with me on that. I mean, we've had some people that helped us laugh and opened our eyes. Pulled the wool off our eyes. Come on, sheep. You need to rise up. You need to get a backbone. Ladies in particular need a backbone. Men need a backbone too. If she's a married woman, you need to make sure to support that marriage. And if you're going to talk with her, you need to make sure the husband knows. And if possible, he needs to be present. And if you're going to be friends with her, by God, you're going to be friends with her husband too. Because if there's a problem there, you don't want to be the cause of it. That's what we need. And that school teacher that I visited, she was old school like that. And that reminds me of Ramona Martin, Ernst Martin's widow, Dr. Ernst Martin. Ask, what did he call that? Association for Scriptural Knowledge, and I borrowed it and I call it Advanced Scriptural Knowledge for me. Ask. And I am going to get into the specifics in the Bible that perplex me, and we're going to be covering that stuff. And I know that's being hypocritical, because I tell you, read it longitudinally. Just go through the whole thing like it's one work of art, like it's one unified work. So you can put things together. You're the one that puts it together. That's how the Holy Spirit gets into you in part, okay? That's just part of it. But you have to do the work. And so at age 53, after 2 massive strokes, disoriented and having a real rough time, because I didn't know at that point, I didn't even know I had stroke until much later. And when I realized what I had been through, I felt sorry for the guy. Because when I saw how much damage there was to the brain, I was like, wow, and you're still functioning? Woo, baby. And not only that, I figured out it was 2 strokes, not 1. Didn't catch either one in time. So I sat on my butt and I read my Bible. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Life was coming back to me. I was able to remember the name of the book, 2 digits chapter, 2 digits verse. And you may think, what's the big deal? I couldn't do that for about 1.5 years, 2 years, 3 years. I couldn't do that. Actually, it happened while reading the Bible, and that would have been on at least my 2nd read-through, probably the 3rd read-through, because at that time, yes, that would have been the 3rd read-through. The 1st read-through, I just went through, got the general gist of it, realized there's a lot to this. I haven't got it straight. I can't keep the names of the characters straight. There's a lot of parallel construction. You had twin boys quite often in there. Anyway, The second read through, I went after the footnotes and I realized there was an agenda in the footnotes. This is an NIV Study Bible, 1983, the original one, first one. And after that, I decided I got to read this again. And that's when I started going back and forth to the other notations that were in my study Bible. It was flipping back and forth. I was able to get there. And you got to remember, my short-term working memory had been obliterated. I had been humbled. I had all of the wind taken out of my sails. And I still had my speech centers intact. It hit other centers, and I lost a lot of my abilities. And I don't know if I'll ever get those back or not. I'm not too worried about it because I was given the time to read the Bible. I'm so grateful for that. I had money coming in. I was in a nice house. I had this table here. I had a chair very similar to this, with a footstool similar to this. I had beautiful picture windows and a tall ceiling in the living room, much like I've got a tall window here in my motor home that gives me natural light so I can read. I wanted to get 2 of them, but that's the next model up. And anyway, I can't afford that. I'm just happy that I think I could afford this. Thank you, Yahweh. Thank you so much. And thank you for the ability to pay my bills off, which I'm going to attend to today, at least in part. You don't graduate yourself. You are graduated. And you didn't graduate based upon your age with cohorts. That was a major mistake. That's how you dumb down people. So yes, I want to see the industrialized education system destroyed. I don't want to see these big box places anymore. I also don't want to see buses with student crosswalks and student monitors and the signs that come out and the tickets that go with it. And it's dumb. It's stupid. We were taught how to cross the street. Our parents taught us that. And frankly, some of us didn't do too good at it. We were taught manners. We were taught to get out of the way, to stay out of the way. We were taught to think about others first, maybe too much, before ourselves. In my case, I know my parents would argue that I'm selfish and tell me that all the time. Hell, I was just trying to make my way in the world, and they weren't helping much. They were in the way. My parents were under the influence of the communists. They were reading all of that stuff, and the experts that were presented to them were giving them the worst advice possible. You want proof of that? Look up thalidomide babies. Yeah, I was a little boy when that stuff was going on. So I escaped that one, but I didn't escape their other stuff that they did. But I escaped that, and they kept giving women thalidomide for 1.5 years. And that's the way it is today. They don't test anything out first. They give it to us. And it's only when they're caught that they'll either slowly withdraw from the market and substitute something else, or they'll finally be forced to stop doing the damage they're doing. Remind you of anything, any time period, anything going on today? America needs to face her fears. And there's a lot of fears. But we need to face them. They're not quite as ugly as what we think. And if we wait upon, I wait upon Yahweh. I had to wait upon to give me a way out of the dilemma I was in yesterday and leave that horrid site I was in and those circumstances. And save my motorhome from somebody who didn't know what the hell he was doing. Well, I've discharged a little bit of my anxiety today, and I should have fed myself. I got a guy coming out here, and I'm just afraid the wind's been a bit too strong, but it's not too bad right now. He's got to get up on the roof. He fixed the solar job done on my buddy's coach, and I just happened to drive up while he was there, and he found a lot of things that were fire hazards that the guy created. So he's just not fastidious enough to work in this field, to be honest with you. I mean, you've got to be very anal to put in a proper electrical crimp. You can't just rush through things. And this guy was taking shortcuts. It's still in pretty bad shape, but it's going to be better once I get this expert guy out here and take care of that. I hope you've gotten something from this and learned something, but yeah, the most important thing is getting rid of that education system. However, we still have this current illegal government that's in power, far too much power. And also we have all of the professions, the licensed professionals, which are centrally controlled, centrally educated, and told what to do, especially the medical doctors and the attorneys and the God-blessed psychologist and the dentist. They've all been taught lies, and they are programmed up with that stuff every day, so they can't think outside the box very well. Especially the attorneys, because they don't even know the laws themselves. And of all things, the medical doctors. They're killing us on purpose, folks. Don't kid yourself. And as a matter of fact, the best thing you can do is just tell your doctor, you tell me what the problems that this stuff can cause are, or I'm not taking it. And you need to just tell the doctors when it comes to certain medicines, I'll pass. Because he gets a kickback on every one of those medications that he's writing for. Big Pharma makes sure to enrich them for marketing their outrageously marked up products. And the average markup in the medical pharmaceutical business is 10,000%. I know. I wince. I blink when I say that because it's so freaking unbelievable. But the markup in supplements in the health industry is only 20-fold. 2,000%. Anyway, there's plenty of room for them to make a good, honest living without raping the rest of us and taking all the goodies for themselves. That's the other thing is that there are other healing modalities which they have outside of the United States of America, which are curing cancer. They don't just treat it. They've got better care outside the country than we have inside. I think that we should be inviting those specialists outside the country to come in and train us up here. I mean, we've been doing some training, and sadly, we've been training them in the art of killing their populations. The World Health Organization medical doctor published a paper more than 20 years ago, and they determined the cause of all cancers. Why are we still not treating the causes of all cancers? That's the way it is. And of course, YouTube gets pissed off at me because I'm in violation of the World Health Organization. And I violated their trust and their dominion and their tyranny over us. Well, their own head medical doctor came out with a study. And the word is, he was interviewed after he left. Why did you quit the WHO? He says, because they told me. They didn't want people to know this stuff so they could take better care of themselves. So let's put two and two together. Does that mean the World Health Organization works hand in hand with Big Pharma and the medical doctors that are putting the screws to us? Oh, and there's one more drug I'm going to criticize right now. Statins. Don't take them. They help you develop, they help Alzheimer's along. They help you deteriorate globally overall. Don't take them. They ripped out 17 pounds of muscle off my little body here before we caught it and stopped them. If I'd have kept going, I would have died. That stuff is not good, and not everybody has that much of a reaction that I had, but I happen to be very sensitive to poisons, to medicines. I'm allergic to poison. As one of my early counselors and mentors kind of said to me, he says, because I didn't drink very well, and I had one hell of a hangover from half a frickin' beer. My liver was probably compromised from all the medicines that I was taking and all the other stuff I indulged in. It was so long ago. But don't worry, my brother won't let me forget about it. That's all he wants to do is remind me of that shit, you know. The last time he did, we were burying my father. I was up there at the house, and I had to ask him. He's criticizing me for the drugs. All right, I have it coming, but I have it not coming too. The timing, his timing. I looked at my brother. I said, Jay, I had to ask the question. How long ago was that? He had no answer for me. So I took the time to calculate it. I looked at him and I said, it's 45 years ago. Let it go. Oh, no, he has to badmouth me to the world about drugs. Yes, it's in my background. Most of the people that I hang out with these days look at me and go, no, not you, never you. Yeah, dumbass me. But I woke up in time, and I busted my ass to make something of myself. Yahweh does save in this life in real time. That's what I'm getting at. When you come over to the good side, it starts now. It ain't over, baby. They're going to be fighting over your ass and over your soul like you will not believe. It is an individual fight. I can't fight it for you. I can just tell you that it's normal. It's part of life. Stay with it. Prevail. If you have trouble like I had, open the Bible up. Read it. It's okay. She's a good watchdog. Good girl. So I got to get a little bit in my belly here and get my medicines laid out and get ready for my guest. I am looking forward to being secure in my domicile, for a little bit better secure. And I will keep you abreast on my travels. And pray for me. I really do need... I want to sell a whole lot of Bibles. I'm one of those guys that says, if I had the money, I would like to do this or do that. And I read about this fellow, Kano Reeves, and how he's so generous with the people he works with, and, you know, with people he runs into on the street. And he insists on hanging out with the public. And I haven't met the man. I don't know the man, but I'm just going to take a guess that he stays grounded. And I'm also going to take a guess that he actually is probably so far advanced in understanding this game of life, if you will, that he's satisfied. I have some satiation as well. I have some satisfaction in knowing that I went through the gauntlet. I went through the labyrinth, and I actually succeeded. But I didn't get myself out. I busted my ass. I didn't think I was ever getting out. I didn't think it was possible to get what I've gotten. I was told it was not possible. The books told me that. My education told me that. They'll tell you that today. If you walk into the doctor's office, they'll give you a bunch of shit about it. They give me a bunch of shit about it, but it's like, I'm gonna rat's ass what you think or what you say, But if you write bullshit into my chart, and by the way, they wrote a lot of bullshit in my chart, you really do need to go after them. I think I need to do that as well. And by the way, the records were all centralized thanks to Barack Obama and thanks to social insurance, which you call Social Security, which is just a big rat trap. It's a big imprisonment. They created a trust fund for each one of us. Now, I'm going to take a guess. That's back when they made, Trust and Warranty Company or whatever it was. They made an institution back then and didn't tell us that much about it. So it operates in the background. And I got news for you, baby. I think all of our trust accounts are held in there. I think that's where all the accounting is done on each one of our asses. Remember, they sold. They take those reports our mothers gave them on us, and our mothers signed that, not knowing that she was signing us over to the company. Yeah. Oh, St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Man, it's one of the earliest memories I have as a little boy. Tennessee Ernie Ford, Tennessee Williams Ford. I don't keep the names straight very well. I never did like staying up on all those people in Hollywood. Oh, and if you think that's... if you want a little lesson, and I know you won't understand language, and I won't either, but if you want a little lesson, tune into Bollywood. It's the Indian version, and you can see that they're getting corrupted just like the rest of us. They've exported their sorcery, their corruption, their decay, their cultural decline. They're dumbing down across the whole planet. You don't graduate yourself. I didn't graduate myself. I submitted to some great men. I had some wonderful training and some wonderful oversight. And they weren't going to let me get by with anything. Thank God they didn't. I turned out pretty damn good. I had ethics shoved down my throat by each and every one of them. I'm grateful for that. I didn't like it at the time. It was a little bit of sometimes it was a bitter lesson. But they helped me understand the profession and helped me establish some boundaries, which I didn't really have very good boundaries, and I still don't have very good boundaries. I may never have very good boundaries. I just don't know. But I continue. Yeah, I'm not reading my Bible enough, okay. But I continue with that, and I continue with my prayers, and I continue to wait, and I continue to be as patient as I can, because I know that the other universes, the parallel universes that you and I are in, we're not aware of this very well. We're not supposed to be aware of it. It's not for us while we're in these mortal bodies to access. See, the difference between some of us is we get access to it, and some of us, actually most of us get access to it, but some of us remember it. And some of that stuff is disturbing at different levels, different worlds, different universes. And you've got to go through the bad stuff to get to the good stuff. From what I can tell, from all my years of experience and from my decades of reading, that's pretty much what happens. Now, Paul isolated for 17 and a half years before he started coming out in public. And he only made one brief appearance and went back in seclusion. He was reading his Bible the entire time. I know, we look at it as like, hey man, bolt of lightning, that's it. I said the magic words, that's it. No. Paul went and secluded and read the scriptures that were available to him. That's how he had access to the Holy Spirit. Did he get it right? We argue about it all the time. But as we grow and as we learn more, we realize a bit more. as to how right Paul really was and how spot on he was. And if you read between the lines, you will realize who the Antichrist was back then and who the Antichrist is today and where the Antichrist comes from. And the Antichrist is both an institution, and a man. In my view, that's my take on it. You don't have to accept it at all. You see, I believe the Antichrist company runs the world today. Yeah, out of that little area there in the middle of Rome. Canon law, cannons, gunpowder, canon law. Running roughshod over the rest of us through 3 giant frauds and building that crown up for each one of these 3 giant frauds they played in their con game on us. I pray that the Roman Catholic Church will be able to look to these good cardinals and bishops, which are few and far between, and turn to them, and that they might help them come out of the mysteries that have been shoved down their throats, so they can understand things better. And I pray for the same thing for my own church and my own people, because we need to learn how to accept salvation in the present and take it now, here, and today, and be grateful for it today. May Yahweh bless.